This is how I believe the map is going to look at the end of the day, because Donald Trump is barnstorming. Donald Trump is on a rampage. Donald Trump is going everywhere he can possibly think to go. Donald Trump is headed to Pennsylvania. Donald Trump is headed to Georgia. Donald Trump isn't just going, by the way, to the swing states. He's not just going to the battleground states. A lot of folks think, oh, he's just going to go to the places where he thinks he can win. No, he actually said, we're going to go to a lot of blue states. We're going to go to a lot of red states. We're going to go to a lot of states that we believe are already in our pocket, because they deserve some loving too. They're doing a lot to support the cause, and they deserve to have their favorite president come and visit them. And when Donald Trump goes someplace these days, he's not just in rally mode. He's not just in campaign mode. He's in, this is it. This is our last chance to save America mode. And that is why I truly and humbly believe that the map at the end of the day is going to look a lot like this. Red state, okay, maybe not California, maybe not Oregon, but a lot of them the tide is turning. In fact, let me show you one of the latest polls, and one of the polls that I believe is one of the most important polls. Here it is. This is the cookie poll. I don't know if you've ever seen the cookie poll, but the Cincinnati cookie poll. Cincinnati is in Ohio, home of the Bengals, who are now 0-3. But the Cincinnati cookie poll, a Cincinnati bakery whose cookie poll has, by the way, they wrote breaking news. It probably should have been crumbling news, but that's okay. A Cincinnati bakery whose cookie poll has accurately predicted every election outcome but one since 1984 shows Trump leading Harris. Trump cookies. Get this. They've sold 2,953 Trump cookies. They've sold 2,134 Harris cookies. That's a difference of over 800 cookies in favor of President Donald Trump. Independent cookies, which I guess are these smiley face cookies. These are the independents. They're so happy to be independent. They're so happy that they're not being put in a box. Well, I guess maybe they are. I guess you do put cookies in a box depending on how many you buy. But the independent cookies, 397. So even if Harris got all 397 of the independent cookies in the general election, Donald Trump would still be president based on the cookie poll. Now, the really interesting thing about this is that Donald Trump outsold Kamala Harris cookies, even though I hear that the Kamala Harris cookies are full of rum. I don't have my rim shot on the road. I couldn't pack the drum set in the suitcase while I came to DC. So very exciting. But look, I'm telling you, man, there's a lot of good news every single day for Donald Trump, for the Trump campaign. There's a lot of good news every single day for Republicans, for conservatives, and most importantly, for the United States of America, because Donald Trump is a man on a mission. His first mission is to win the presidency. His second mission is to make America great again. And yesterday, you can hear this. You can tell I'm in DC because there's going to be sirens every 5 seconds. By the way, yesterday I went to the airport. I flew into DC last night. And I went to the airport and we got in a little late. And I went to go get my rental car, and they didn't have the rental car that I requested. I requested like a mid-size, whatever. I was like, give me a mid-size, whatever. And I get up there and they're like, sir, we don't have your car. And I go, oh, and they go, would you take a Mercedes-Benz instead? And I was like, I think I would. I absolutely would. So they go, and I go, no extra charge, right? They're like, no, just here, take a Mercedes-Benz. It's on us. And I looked at the guy and I go, wow, now I know what Vladimir Zelenskyy feels like. That'd be another good shot. Another good place for a rim shot. But I don't. Yeah, that's right. President Zelenskyy, he's coming to the United States. He's getting more money. He's coming to Washington, D.C., Pennsylvania. He's getting more money. I came to Washington. I got a Mercedes-Benz. Sure, it's not mine to keep. I only get it for a couple days, but hey, I'm not complaining, and neither is Zelenskyy. We have more on Vladimir Zelenskyy coming up, but I do want to get back to Donald Trump trying to dominate this election and trying to win every state. And Donald Trump he was in Pennsylvania yesterday. In fact, everybody was in Pennsylvania yesterday. Donald Trump was in Pennsylvania campaigning. Vladimir Zelenskyy was in Pennsylvania campaigning. And Tucker Carlson was also in Pennsylvania. But Donald Trump did something that the left hated. In fact, Donald Trump went to a grocery store and he helped people pay for their groceries. And wouldn't you know it, the left is now calling for a federal investigation. They want more charges. They want to accuse Donald Trump of bribing people to vote for him. They believe this is a federal offense. Look at this.
Here. It's going to go down a little bit. It just went down $100. We'll do that for you from the White House, all right?
Thank you.
All right, bye. Nice seeing you, everybody.
Donald Trump goes to a supermarket in Pennsylvania and gives out $100 bills to people to help pay for their groceries, offset the cost of the rising groceries that have just been destroying families and personal budgets all over the country. And now the left is like, federal crime, charge him again. The 91 indictments weren't enough, obviously. The 34 bogus convictions obviously weren't enough. So we are going to now charge him with campaign fraud and buying votes and some kind of federal election racketeering or whatever. But it's an interesting ploy. Donald Trump is going everywhere. He's going not just to rallies, which, are great. He's doing his Donald Trump thing. He's in good spirits. He's in a good place. He's got great energy. He's ready to go in and conquer Pennsylvania. And he also rightly knows that Pennsylvania is not a state.
I almost said the state of Pennsylvania, but I meant the Commonwealth. I never said the state. I was able to catch it because I'm cognitively very strong.
That's a dig. That's a dig at Joe Biden, in case you didn't know. He's cognitively very strong, that Donald Trump, and he knows it's the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and not just the state of Pennsylvania. But whatever it is, he knows that he's going to make he knows he's going to make Pennsylvania great again.
Take the rest of it. Here, it's going to go down a little bit. It just went down $100. We'll do that for you from the White House, all right?
Thank you.
All right, bye. Nice seeing you, everybody.
This is something Kamala Harris would never do, by the way. She would never walk into a grocery store and start handing out $100 bills. In fact, when she went to the Wawa, you may remember, she was on a hunt for Doritos. She had two white dudes for Kamala, and they were searching for Doritos. Tim Walz and, of course, her husband, Doug Emhoff, and they found them, thank God. And then they got back in the bus and they drove away. But Donald Trump he's there and he's meeting the people and he's talking to the people and he's seeing what's going on. And he realizes that at the grocery store, there's a lot of issues. In fact, he stopped and talked to the grocery store owner. And keep in mind, this isn't a Kroger. This isn't Harris Teeter. This isn't Publix. This isn't one of the big chains. This is a mom and pop grocery store, which already has enough issues. I mean, when you're a mom and pop grocery store, you're already feeling the heat from the big stores, from not just the grocery stores, but the Walmarts and the Targets and all these other places that have begun selling groceries in the past few years. And Donald Trump's like, hey, how's it going?
They are destroying our country. Then you add inflation to it, and you add the bad economy, and you talk to the people right here that are paying 30, 40, 50% more for their groceries, which I think I can say is right. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct.
It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. We're going to win the election. We're going to turn the country around. We're going to get energy prices way down. That's going to bring other prices way down. And we're going to take care of crime. We're going to stop the crime. And we're going to deport the criminals that have been brought into our country. They're going back to the jails from which they came. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I mean, like he's doing a mini rally in front of people wearing like Ben Roethlisberger jerseys, which is kind of odd because Ben Roethlisberger doesn't play for Pittsburgh anymore. But that's what he's doing. He's the everyman, and he doesn't just talk to the people. He's like, hey, tell me what's going on here at this grocery store, dude.
So how do you do against the big stores? How do you do?
You know, I'm very proud because every year we've been up, except for the last 3 years because of this inflation. Yeah. It's exactly what you said. The prices are up, but our sales are down. So we've had to get super creative in how we use our space to try to.
Prices go up and yet your sales are down.
Yeah. So it's been brutal just to try to. Thankfully, I have a great crew, great staff. My family. We work
How long
together.
has this been open?
We've been in business 25 years.
Wow.
We bought it. This store where you're standing there has been a grocery store since 1929.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
That is great. It may not be there much longer though if Kamala Harris wins the presidency. That's one of the big issues. Donald Trump had a couple of other things to say when he was at the grocery store. In fact, he hung out for a while. He was talking to people. He was taking photos. He was autographing things. He watched this one lady come up to the counter with some apples.
A woman came in with 3 apples. She put them down at the cash register, and she realized she couldn't afford 3, and she brought one back. And that shouldn't be this country.
Oh.
She brought one back, and she bought 2 instead of 3. That shouldn't be this.
That shouldn't be that. Donald Trump goes in, he watches a lady come up with 3 apples. She can't afford them. She goes back. She comes back with 2 apples. And the whole time he's thinking to himself, hey, Kamala, how do you like them apples? This lady can't even afford 3 apples. How's she going to make, what kind of pie? You can't make a pie with 2 apples. You can make maybe a tart or something like that. Maybe, is that what you want, Kamala? You want this little lady to make an apple tart? You can't make anything. 2 apples, what's that going to... An apple a day keeps the doctor away. That's only 2 days that she's keeping the doctor away. And with skyrocketing health costs and prescription drug costs, she can't afford health care either. So there's all kinds of issues. There's all kinds of issues with that. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris's surrogates were out trying to do a number on the media. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris's surrogates were out trying to explain that Kamala Harris actually has a plan. They just don't know what it is. I think her name's Kathy Hyman. Unfortunately for her name's Kathy Hyman, and she was on Fox News, and she was stumped. She was stumped by the Fox News reporter when they asked her, what exactly is your boss's plan for, stuff?
What is Harris's plan? We're waiting.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot of aspects to it in regards to looking at it online. So let's talk about lowering the grocery costs, because that's something that's brought up. The viewers can look at this online. She talks about certain things in regards to advancing the first federal ban on price gouging on food and groceries, to set clear rules to the road to make it clear that big corporations can't unfairly exploit consumers as well.
Is that happening? Is that happening?
It's not at this moment. No, this is her plan that's laid out for the first 100 days when she becomes president of the United States of America.
Is that currently happening?
In regards to I don't know exactly if that's currently happening or not, because I'm not privy to that type of information.
Okay. You're not. Wait a minute. You're the spokesperson for the campaign, and you're not privy to information like, is price gouging happening? The whole plan, Kamala Harris's whole plan for bringing down prices is to go after price gougers, which, fun fact, isn't even a thing. And when her surrogate, when Kathy Hyman is out there speaking on behalf of the Kamala Harris campaign, and she's asked, is this happening? She goes, no, the plan's not happening yet. She goes, no. Is price gouging happening? Is that the reason why this lady in Pennsylvania at the store where Donald Trump goes, tries to buy 3 apples? She can't afford 3 apples. She buys 2 apples instead because that's all she can afford. Are you telling me that the reason this lady can only afford 2 apples and not 3 apples is because the farmers that own those apple orchards, those bastards, are price gouging her out of the 3 apples that she so rightly deserves? Is that what it is? These farmers are price gouging the apples? Who knew? Who knew? Kathy Hyman didn't know because she's not privy to that kind of information. It just got worse for her, by the way, in this interview.
But there are people are costing a lot of money in regards to groceries.
Okay. It seems like you're having a hard time articulating her plan. And
honestly, that's not true. Please, I'm constantly being interrupted by you, which as a woman, I think is disrespectful. When I'm trying to speak, every time I try and speak, you speak over me.
As a woman, I'm sorry. I'm actually trying to articulate the plan, but you're not giving me enough time because you're interrupting. You're interrupting me. And as a woman, that is very disrespectful. As a woman, you should have my back. As a woman, and this is their whole plan. If you're a woman and you're interviewing somebody who's a woman, you should just respect them because they're a woman. Needless to say, they're an idiot. The rest, put that to the side. They're not privy to the information that you're looking for. They don't really have a knowledge of the campaign, of the non-existent plan, or the problems that are facing the United States of America, nor do they have any information about how their candidate is going to fix all of that because, fun fact, spoiler alert, she's not. But that's disrespect. You should never, as a woman, treat another woman that way. That right there is the crux of Kamala Harris's campaign. She's a black woman. Therefore, every black person and every woman should automatically vote for her, even though she has no plans and she's going after price gouging, which doesn't actually exist. Or if it does, her spokespeople don't know about it because they're not privy to that information. This is my favorite part at the very end.
Okay. Final thought.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. I was giving you time there.
And you complain you don't have any time. You're like, all right, fine. Final thought. I'll shut up. Go ahead. And the woman says, thank you for having me. She's out, man. She's done. She's like, I am out of here. I don't want to deal with you anymore. I don't want you Fox News babes to try to twist my words or make me look like an idiot. I can handle that on my own. So I'm going to go leave. So that's Donald Trump's plan for winning the entire country. That's how Donald Trump is going to make America red again. That's really what it is. Donald Trump's going to make America red again. He is going to go in and he's going to say, look, here's what we need. We need every single state to vote for me. We need every single state to go red because that's really the only way we're going to save this country. That's really the only way. What happened to my map? I had a map there. I'm going to see. That's really the only way that we're going to save this country. That's really the only way that we're going to make America great again. And we're going to fix all of the problems. We're going to fix the non-existent price gouging. We're going to bring the real reason or the real way you bring prices down is by bringing down inflation, by by drilling for oil again, because Donald Trump's right. If we have oil is the key to everything. It's the fuel of our economy. And if we are getting foreign bought oil, if we're getting oil from foreign countries, if we are relying on our enemies, I mean, think about this. We're getting oil from the Middle East, which is about to explode into World War III. These people hate us. They want to kill us. They want to see us dead. And they are price gougers. You want to talk about price gougers? Let's talk about OPEC. The price gouging is coming from the Middle Eastern oil companies. It's coming from Russia, which sells oil. It's coming from Venezuela. All of these people control our ability to move goods around this country. All of those trucks, all of those trains, everything requires some form of energy. And most of the energy we get is no longer here in the United States of America because the Democrats don't want us to drill, baby, drill. The Democrats don't want us to be energy independent. They don't want us to be net exporters of energy. They think that oil is bad, and they'd rather send all of our money overseas to our enemies and let them control the price of the fuel that goes in your cars. Let them control the price of the groceries on your shelf. Let them control the price of pretty much everything that you need to survive in the country. And the same is true of housing. All your housing supplies, new houses, the cost of building is going up because the construction costs are so high because you've still got to transport these people you've got to transport, these nails and these hammers and these planks of wood and everything all over the country. And if the price of energy goes up, the price of everything goes up. And the only price gouging going on is by OPEC. But they don't want you to know that because they are the Democrats and the Middle East are like this. They're together, united against Israel, which we'll get to in a little while. But first, I want to share something with you, some very exciting news. As you know, this show continues to grow. And as we meet every single day here at noon Eastern, 11 Central, as we post more videos and podcasts, for those of you that are listening on Spotify and iTunes, we really appreciate it. And we appreciate everybody who subscribes. If you have not yet subscribed, I would urge you. In fact, I think I have the little subscribe thing here. Oh, here it is. Watch this. Ready? I would urge you to take a minute to subscribe to this channel. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our Rumble channel is growing by leaps and bounds. And man, people are taking notice. Every single time we post on X, we're getting more and more people that are following us and liking us. And our message continues to get spread. So take a moment and click whatever button you need to click so that we can, like I said, we can continue to grow. But other people are taking notice too. And I'm very, very excited to announce that we actually have a brand new sponsor for Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, and this one, I'm jazzed. I don't know, these are my Tim Walz jazz hands. If I were Tim Walz, I'd be like, woo! I'm so excited because we have, wait till you hear this. This is amazing. We have an American legend. We have an American icon. We have one of the most bad mamma jamma patriotic Americans who has ever lived now helping to support Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, and I am just beside myself with glee. Ladies and gentlemen, I, of course, am talking about the one and only Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris, the man who doesn't do push-ups, but pushes the earth down. That Chuck Norris. Chuck Norris is now a sponsor of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic each and every day right here on Rumble and YouTube and for our podcast. In fact, I don't know if you've seen Chuck Norris lately. The dude is 80, right? The dude is 80 years old. And Joe Biden's in his 80s. Donald Trump is getting up in his 80s. Chuck Norris has the energy and the vitality and the stamina like you wouldn't believe. And it's all because of one of these formulas that he put together long ago to help sustain his youthful energy and physique. And now it's available to pretty much anyone who wants it. Check this out. It's called chuckdefense.com. And Chuck Norris has this roundhouse provisions. He's put together something really incredible. In fact, if you want to watch this video I watched, all you have to do is go to chuckdefense.com/MK. chuckdefense.com/MK. This guy is working out and staying active well into his 80s. He's stronger. He can work out longer. He has plenty of energy left over for his grandkids too, which are very important. He did this just by making one change. And he says in this video, he still feels like he's in his 50s. His wife even started doing this one thing too, and she's never felt better. She says she feels 10 years younger, and she looks incredible as well. Chuck made a special video that explains everything, and I want you to watch it. chuckdefense.com/MK. chuckdefense.com/MK. Just remember, the legendary Chuck Norris is 84 years old, and he has more energy than, I'm going to be honest with you, he has more energy than I do even. So go there after the show today and watch this video, chuckdefense.com/MK, and listen to our good friend and friend of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, Chuck Norris, talk all about what he's done to become just so incredibly energized and youthful into his mid-80s. It's really incredible. And welcome, by the way, to Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, the one and only Chuck Norris. All right, let's get back to Kamala Harris for just a minute, because she's got this grand plan for bringing down prices by going after price gougers. She's got this grand plan for fixing the United States economy by going after price gougers, which I'm going to be honest with you, I couldn't name one company that is price gouging. I couldn't name one company that I've seen anywhere that has since the pandemic, maybe, or even if there's a hurricane coming toward Florida, every now and then you get price gougers. But I'll be honest with you, our governor is pretty good about taking care of them. And there are price gouging laws in effect that mean if there's a hurricane coming and you sell plywood, you cannot jack up the price of plywood, because the government will come after you and they'll put you out of business. If there's a hurricane coming and you start jacking up the price of gasoline, the government will come after you and they'll put you out of business, and you'll no longer be able to sell gasoline, because, as I said, on the state level, we've got all those price gouging laws in order. But people all over the country are wondering, what exactly is Kamala Harris going to do? And Kamala Harris was on NPR, and they were discussing her plan. This is in Wisconsin, by the way, another important battleground swing state. And in Wisconsin, they asked Kamala Harris, what's your plan for bringing down housing costs? Here's what she said.
One other issue we're seeing across the country is concern over the lack of affordable housing. You asked Harris about that and asked her how to address the issue in Wisconsin. What did she say?
Well, I asked her this because Wisconsin is seeing a big jump in housing prices, and she said that she can relate to renters because she grew up with a mom who was a renter, and she was a teenager before her mother could afford to buy a home.
There you go. How are you going to bring down the cost of housing? Well, I can relate to renters because I was a renter. Nobody cares what you were. Nobody cares if you were a renter. Nobody cares when your mother bought her first home. Nobody cares that you grew up in a middle-class family. Nobody cares about your lawn. Nobody cares if you're black. Nobody cares if you're Indian, especially Janet Jackson, which we'll get to in a minute. But the fact of the matter is, Kamala Harris has no plan. The only thing she has are stories. And stories... Here's the thing. I think she heard somebody say once long ago that stories are a great way to relate to people, that stories are a great way to connect with people, and they are. You know, we all love a good story. Stories have, ever since the time of Homer's The Odyssey and Homer's The Iliad, people have sat down together around the fire and listened to a good tale of heroism and overcoming obstacles and yada yada, all that great stuff. But, you know, there comes a point when, okay, we appreciate the story. What we want now is the solution. She has a lot of stories. Actually, she doesn't. She has 4 stories. She just tells them over and over again. But 0 solutions. And when it comes to the high price of homes and the fact that all these people are renting, she says she knows because she's a renter herself. The guy, Joe, what's his name, from Squawk Box, he's just about fed up with the Kamala Harris campaign. MSNBC's Squawk Box, they've been going after Democrats for a long time. They've been going after Democrats for their lack of economic understanding. They've been going after Democrats for their lack of economic policy proposals. The policy proposals they have are horrible and will bankrupt the economy, like the unrealized capital gains tax, which nobody believes is a good idea, except, of course, for Kamala Harris, because, oh, look, more money to send to Ukraine. But so there, Joe, what's his name on Squawk Box, has Senator Chris Coons, the new Joe Biden. Senator Chris Coons from Delaware, who is the new Joe Biden. He took Joe Biden's seat. He's like Joe Biden's surrogate. He's always out there talking on behalf of the Kamala Harris campaign and the Joe Biden campaign. Chris Coons, Senator Coons, is on, and Joe, what's his name from Squawk Box, just gives him, is like, dude, you're rope-a-doping us.
There is an effort to rope-a-dope this thing right to the election, in my view. And the other side's done 40 or 50 interviews with J.D. Vance. I think I don't have to take my shoes off to count on my fingers and toes how many interviews that she's done along with Governor Walz. And that looks like a deliberate effort just not to face the hard questions and to try to, I don't know, I think Americans might finally say, I don't like the way this is working. I want to know. I think Andrew was getting at that in another way, that we would like to know something. We'd like to see questions asked and answers provided for all these things. We may never get that. We only got 40 days left.
Look at Joe Kernan, by the way, is his name. Thank you. Joe Kernan from Squawk Box is saying, look, you're trying to rope-a-dope us. You're just dancing around. You're dancing around the ring, and you're not going to take any shots, and you're not going to land any punches, and you're going to do that until the end of the campaign, and we don't want that. We want actual answers. We don't want these tropes anymore. We don't want these stories. We don't want whatever it is you're handing us. We want actual answers. We want to know what you're going to do for this country. We want you to sit down and tell somebody. And the Kamala Harris campaign is not doing that. Kamala Harris is not doing that. And he said, listen to Chris Coons' response. Why isn't Kamala Harris giving people the information they need about her campaign?
We just had Vice President Harris say, yes, let's do another presidential debate. And Donald Trump say no. And you have to agree that a nationally televised hour-long debate is one way to answer a lot of direct questions.
So it's just sitting down with an interview with anyone.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. He says it's Donald Trump's fault. Joe Kernan, why won't Kamala Harris sit down for an interview? Well, Donald Trump won't come to the debate. So how can she? Why won't Kamala Harris let everybody know? Why won't Kamala Harris detail and outline and give us the rundown of her agenda? Why is it that she won't explain how she's going to bring down prices? Not just price gouging, but actual prices. Why won't she tell us what her border policy is? Why won't she tell us what her policy is to make homes more affordable and cut out crime in these major cities? Why won't she do that? And Chris Coons, senator from Delaware, says, Donald Trump won't come to the debate, so I don't know how she's going to... How's she going to tell you? There's no debate. Debate, Trump, his fault. This is their answer. They're going to give Kamala Harris one chance, the debate. That's where she wants to go. She wants to go to CNN, of course, with Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. She wants to sit in front of them. She wants to answer softball questions, and she wants to attack Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump says no, well, then she's not going to talk to the press. She's not going to answer any questions. And if you want to know whose fault it is, it's not Kamala Harris's fault. It's Donald Trump's fault because he's not coming to the debate. You know where he is going? The grocery store, where this poor lady can't buy 3 apples. That's where he's going. He's going to meet the people. He's going to talk to the people. He's going to Wisconsin. Kamala Harris is asked by a Wisconsin NPR station, what's your plan to bring down home prices? What's your plan for these poor people who are renting? And she says, I was a renter too. That's why when CBS actually goes to Wisconsin, guess what they find?
But when we drove through those cornfields, just about every line had a Trump sign.
Yeah.
Flags everywhere, billboards everywhere, Trump campaign offices almost on every other block.
Trump signs, Trump flags. We're driving through the cornfields of Wisconsin. And all we see are Trump flags. All we see are Trump signs. There are Trump campaign offices on every corner in every city we come to in Wisconsin. Why is that? Why is that? Where's all the Kamala support in Wisconsin? Well, maybe if she had solutions instead of stories, Wisconsin would show a little bit more support.
One other issue we're seeing across the country is concern over the lack of affordable housing. You asked Harris about that and asked her how to address the issue in Wisconsin. What did she say?
Well, I asked her this because Wisconsin is seeing a big jump in housing prices, and she said that she can relate to renters because she grew up with a mom who was a renter, and she was a teenager before her mother could afford to buy a home.
Maybe if she stopped talking about herself so much and started talking to other people, she might see a couple signs in those cornfields instead of just rows and rows and rows of Trump signs.
But when we drove through those cornfields, just about every line had a Trump sign.
Yeah.
Flags everywhere, billboards everywhere, Trump campaign offices almost on every other block.
I have to tell you, that's not even the dumbest thing that Senator Coons said. That's not even the dumbest thing this guy said. I mean, yeah, I know. Look, I thought for sure that whoever took Joe Biden's place in the Senate when he became vice president and president, I thought for sure that this person would be smarter than Joe Biden. I don't think so. I don't think Chris Coons is. Listen to what Chris Coons was asked by Joe Kernan and the folks at Squawk Box. Look, what is Kamala going to do to get back to the economy that we had before Joe Biden took office? Everybody loves Donald. They know Donald Trump's better for the economy. They know they were better off 4 years ago. We asked people, were you better off 4 years ago? The answer is a resounding yes. And what is Kamala Harris's plan to get back to that? Listen to what Chris Coons had to say.
Part of it is that Americans, when you ask the question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Many Americans misremember just how bad the economy was 4 years ago and how strong our economic recovery from the pandemic has been.
You're misremembering it. That's your problem. We asked people, were you better off 4 years ago than you are today? Yes. No, you weren't. You're misremembering it. You're wrong. His answer to why do Americans feel that they were better off under Donald Trump than they are under Joe Biden, his answer is they're stupid. They're remembering it wrong. No, you're remembering it wrong. You're misremembering. You were fantastic under Joe Biden and you were horrible under Donald Trump. That's so funny because I remember when Donald Trump was president, gas was $2 a gallon, sometimes lower. Apparently, I'm misremembering that. I'm going to have to go back and check some of my credit card receipts from 2019. I remember, geez, you know what I remember? I remember getting a huge tax break. I remember the company I worked for got a massive tax cut and they shared that wealth with all of the employees. And I got a $1,000 check from my company because Donald Trump was president. And I have a vivid memory of that. Maybe I'm just misremembering it, although I don't think so. I remember when money that I wanted to borrow to buy a home or to buy this or buy that, buy a new car was so dirt cheap. We're talking 3%, 3.5% for a home loan. I remember, in fact, I think, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm going to go back and check my mortgage payment because I bought my home when Donald Trump was president and I'm pretty sure I have the same mortgage rate and maybe I'm just misremembering all of that. They're trying to trick you. They're brainwashing you into thinking that the reality, first they did it with the statues and the history. They tried to tell you that this was a racist country and it was founded on racism. Then they tried to tell you that every single great leader, every founding father was a racist. Now they're trying to tell you that that 1619 is when the United States actually came into existence because that's when the first slave ships came to be. Then they started throwing statues in the river or just dismantling them all together. Then they tried to make you forget that there was ever a civil war. And while it was not the greatest moment in our country's history, it was still part of our country's history. And now they're trying to tell you, no, you're misremembering 2018. Your life was not better. You're wrong. Your life is better now. So if you think that you were better off 4 years ago than you are now, you're dumb.
Part of it is that Americans, when you ask the question, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? Many Americans misremember just how bad the economy was 4 years ago and how strong our economic recovery from the pandemic has been.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe my memory's starting to go, but I don't think so. Listen, Kamala Harris is out there, I guess, somewhere. I don't know where she is. She's not, I guess she's doing small rallies. She's doing these NPR interviews. Donald Trump is everywhere. Every time I go on X, every time I turn on the TV, I see Donald Trump. There's a rally today in Savannah, Georgia. There was one yesterday in Pennsylvania. He was in North Carolina the day before that. He's going to barnstorm. He has a plan now where he's going to be going to one state at least every single day, probably multiple. I remember back in 2016, in the final legs of the election, he was doing 2 to 3 rallies a day, sometimes in 2 to 3 different states. And it's exactly what pushed him over the edge in places like Michigan and Wisconsin, where all the Trump signs line the cornfields and all the Trump campaign offices are in every quarter on the main street. And it pushed him over the edge in Pennsylvania, which is turning increasingly red. Donald Trump is not stopping. He's coming for all of it. He's coming for every single state. He's coming for the blue states. He's coming for red states and blue states and swing states and all of them. He's going back to New York. In fact, Donald Trump is going to New York and Kamala Harris is not. Kamala Harris. There is a, let me pull this up here real quick. Where is this story? Here we go. This is a bigger story than I think people are giving it credit for. This is the Al Smith dinner. Donald Trump is attending the Al Smith dinner, the charity dinner. Kamala Harris is skipping it. She's skipping it. She's going to campaign in battleground states. Now, this is a big deal. If you're not familiar with the Al Smith dinner, this is a dinner hosted by Catholic Charities in New York by Cardinal, Dolan. And both of the presidential candidates always attend. Donald Trump attended. Hillary Clinton attended. They sit on either side of the cardinal. They get up and they give a speech. And it's like a mini roast. You know, they make jokes about each other. Hillary Clinton would joke about Trump. Trump would joke about Hillary. And it was all to get people to come together in a show of unity before the election. To show that, yes, while we are political adversaries, we are still both human beings. And we understand that there is a greater power and a greater good. And that everything we're doing here, whether it's running for president or running for senator or whatever it is, all of it is to benefit all Americans. Well, this time around, Kamala Harris is not going to attend the Al Smith dinner. She is skipping it. And Cardinal Dolan was asked about it on Fox News, and he had no problem throwing a little shade on the VP.
We're disappointed. We were looking forward to giving the vice president an enthusiastic welcome. And we were confident that she would find this. You know, she speaks very much about the high ideals and how it's good to get away from division and come together in unity and all. Well, that's what the Al Smith dinner is all about. We haven't given up yet. We're not used to this. We don't know how to handle it. This hasn't happened in 40 years since Walter Mondale turned down the invitation. And remember, he lost 49 out of 50 states. I don't want us to say there's a direct connection there.
This hasn't happened in 40 years. His little Irish accent. This hasn't happened in 40 years. Not since Walter Mondale skipped out on our dinner and, well, he lost 49 out of 50 states. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I'm not saying it's a precursor of things to come. I'm just throwing it out there. You've skipped the last presidential candidate to skip the Al Smith dinner was Walter Mondale. And Walter Mondale lost to Ronald Reagan, 49 out of 50 states. In fact, the only state he won was his home state of Minnesota, which, by the way, Donald Trump may win, even though Kamala Harris's VP, Tim Walz, is from Minnesota. It's a very interesting situation what's going on. But Cardinal Dolan says, look, I'm not giving up.
And we're not giving up.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me play the actual clip.
And we're not giving up. You know who's been a help to us, Lauren, is Senator Schumer and Governor Hochul. They both are working hard to see that they convince her to come.
So there's still a chance.
Yeah, and Senator Schumer said to me, he said, I don't think she made the decision. I think her schedulers are saying she can't make it. So we're not giving up. We hope she's there.
The Catholic Church is a very powerful organization. It's a very powerful political organization. It's powerful globally, it's powerful locally, it's powerful domestically, and in New York City, it is hugely powerful. The Catholic Church is, I believe, outside of the U.S. government, although now it may be China, is the largest landowner in the country. The U.S. government owns the most land and property. The Catholic Church is number 2. And then I believe it's China, and then, I don't know, George Soros or somebody like that. But the fact of the matter is that brings with it a lot of prestige. And New York, Cardinal Dolan in New York, I mean, that is the Rome of the United States. That's the seat of power for the Catholic Church in the United States of America. And this is a guy that can sway public opinion in churches across the country. And if Donald Trump is showing up to a dinner and Kamala Harris is not, wouldn't it make you believe that maybe Donald Trump is more in tune with Catholics and Catholic causes and what Catholics really need? In fact, Cardinal Dolan, I don't know if you know this, he wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal in 2018. I'm going to show it to you. And it was called It was called The Democrats Abandon Catholics. This guy already has an in for the Democrat Party. This guy already is not a fan of the modern day Democrat Party. He said, in the way that the Democrats have run to the rich and abandoned the poor and also abandoned the unborn. It used to be in the old days, all these Catholics would come over, these Irish Catholics, these Italian Catholics, they'd come to New York, they'd settle in, they'd go to church, they'd work hard, and they became Democrats because the Democrats were the party of Catholicism. The Democrats were the party of the working man. The Democrats worked diligently to help the poor and protect the unborn. But now that's totally been flipped. And Cardinal Dolan back in 2018 wrote an article for the Wall Street Journal explaining that the modern day Democrat, the Democrats are now the party of the elites. They're the party of the rich. They no longer care about the poor. They no longer care about the working class. They no longer care about the people who came to this country and pour their blood, sweat, and tears into pretty much everything they do. They no longer care about the Teamsters Union, and that's why the Teamsters Union doesn't care about them. That's why Donald Trump won the Teamsters straw poll by 60%. That's why the Teamsters, while they have not endorsed Donald Trump, admitted they will not be endorsing Kamala Harris, which basically is an endorsement of Donald Trump. Again, the first time in decades that that's ever happened. And it's all because of this shift from the Democrat Party. They left the working class behind and they decided they want to be the party of the elites, of the rich. They want to be the party of Oprah Winfrey. They want to be the party of Taylor Swift. They want to be the party of P. Diddy and Justin Bieber and all these other people that are running around doing whatever unchecked, but man, they're having a blast and they're rich and they throw the best parties, Freudian slip. And that's what the Democrats became. And they taxed the working class, and they taxed the Teamsters, and they taxed the poor, and they at the same time made unbearable economic conditions so that while you were taxed more, you had less money, your wages weren't going up if you had a job at all, because let's face it, probably your company was laying you off because the corporate income taxes were so exorbitant, and they had to figure out a way to diffuse the situation, so they just fired a bunch of people. Now, all of a sudden, the rich Democrats are partying down with your tax dollars, and you're left in the lurch. Not to mention, if you're a Catholic and you're like, we've got to protect every unborn baby, we've got to protect all of God's children, we've got to make sure that abortion is not the law of the land, they're passing laws all over the land saying you can abort a baby, after 6 weeks, after 15 weeks, and despite what David Muir wants you to think, yes, sometimes up until the date of birth. That is the modern Democrat Party, and Cardinal Dolan says that's not at all. That's not at all the party that we want. We now are looking at the Republicans. We're looking at the Republican candidates. We're looking at Donald Trump, and we're seeing somebody that vibes more with who we are and what we believe. And Donald Trump said the same. Donald Trump, when he was talking to the at the Israeli dinner the other day, said the same thing. He said, if you're a Jewish person in the United States of America and you're voting for Kamala Harris, you've got to have your head examined. The same is true of Catholics. If you're a Catholic, not a Joe Biden Catholic, not an I go every single week to church, but I vote for pro-abortion, judges and pro-abortion Supreme Court justices, and I attack people who don't believe that a woman has the right to do whatever she wants with her unborn child. Not that kind of Catholic. We're talking about a real Catholic. If you're like a Catholic, not a Joe Biden Catholic that says, I believe that all of God's children should be protected and that we're all, in this together and we're all brothers, but yet I'm going to send money to Ukraine to fund a war against Russians. I'm going to allow Israel to get invaded and tell them it's their fault. Not that kind of Catholic, a real Catholic. Then there's no way you can support anyone who is a Democrat. You can't support a Democrat president, especially not Kamala Harris. Her whole campaign slogan is abortion for all. You can't support somebody who's really just enamored with the idea of elongated conflict across the world on multiple fronts, both Ukraine and in Israel, and probably China and Taiwan will be next. You can't vote for somebody like that if you're a Catholic. If you're a Jewish person, there's tons of reasons why you shouldn't vote for Democrats. Namely, the number one would be that they don't support Israel. That the candidate the Democrats put in place to run for president didn't even come to the joint session of Congress to see the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speak in a time of war. That's another reason why you can't really support them. And then, of course, she's not showing up to the dinner. which, maybe that might be a minor thing. But, if you're looking for something to just break the camel's back, if you're looking for that one straw that's just one too many things, then that might be it. Speaking of Zelensky, Donald Trump was speaking of Zelensky in Pennsylvania.
I think Zelensky's the greatest salesman in history. Every time he comes into the country, he walks away with $60 billion. Billion! Walks in with $60 billion. He wants them to win this election so badly. But I would do differently. I will work out peace as president-elect. If I win this election, the first thing I'm going to do is call up Zelensky and call up President Putin, and I'm going to say, you got to make a deal. This is crazy.
You got to make a deal. This is crazy. He said, the first thing I'm going to do as president-elect, call up Zelensky, call up Putin and say, you have to make a deal. He's going to stop the war. And you know who doesn't want the war stopped? President Zelensky. President Zelensky knows that if the war ends, so does the money. You don't need a bankroll for a war that isn't happening. You don't need 60 billion, 100 billion. You don't need this endless stream of funds coming into your country, into your bank account, into your coffers, into your wife's pocketbook. You don't need any of that if there's no war. The money that we're sending over there so that President Zelensky can protect his people from Vladimir Putin they won't need it anymore if President Putin is no longer a threat. And if Russia is no longer attacking, they won't need it anymore. And nothing scares President Vladimir Zelensky more than the war ending. In fact, he was in Pennsylvania yesterday. Oddly enough, Pennsylvania, a swing state, he was kind of campaigning. He was out there talking smack about J.D. Vance, saying J.D. Vance is a radical. Why is J.D. Vance a radical? Well, because he wants to end the funding to Ukraine. He wants to end the never-ending flow of cash to Ukraine. That makes him crazy. That makes J.D. Vance a radical, dangerous politician in Zelensky's mind, because if J.D. Vance becomes vice president and Donald Trump becomes president and the two of them end this war, how is Vladimir Zelensky going to eat? How is he going to buy caviar for his family? How's escargot isn't cheap, folks. He's going to need all the money he can get. Those champagne corks don't pop themselves. Okay, that doesn't really fit. It doesn't. You get the idea. The man has expensive tastes. Well, he was in Pennsylvania and he was campaigning with none other than Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. And in what is probably the worst visual ever, guess where they went? If you guessed a munitions factory, pat yourself on the back. What they're doing there is they're signing artillery shells. Josh Shapiro and Vladimir Zelensky went to a Pennsylvania artillery factory. They toured the artillery shells and the bombs and all the other munitions, and then they took out Sharpies, and you can see Josh Shapiro, he's writing like a novel. I don't know what he's writing on there. He's writing some kind of novel to Vladimir Putin or to the Russians, and they're signing these things. Then he hands the pen over to Zelensky, who does it as well. Now, this is troublesome for a couple of reasons. First of all, you're bringing Vladimir Zelensky to a munitions factory in Pennsylvania, which is a swing state, and basically turning this weapons factory into a campaign spot for Kamala Harris. That's a problem. He's also speaking out against Kamala Harris's political adversaries, J.D. Vance and Donald Trump, saying we can't have them as president. That also turns it into a campaign stop. Also, he was flown over here on an American airplane. The military sent a plane. They brought Vladimir Zelensky. They protected him. He got more Secret Service protection, or I don't even know if it was Secret Service, but he got more protection while he was walking through this bomb factory than Donald Trump did when he was playing golf or when he was in Butler, Pennsylvania. It's insane the amount of security guards that Vladimir Zelensky, who's not an elected official of this country, gets at the expense of this country. It's just mind-blowing. It's totally baffling. And Tucker Carlson, who was also in Pennsylvania, brought this up in his event yesterday.
I actually don't really want to show up in somebody else's state like attack their politicians, because it's not my state or Commonwealth. But I saw a photograph of your governor, Josh Shapiro, standing with a foreign leader signing an artillery shell that is going to kill civilians in a country we're not at war with.
Yeah. By the way, I don't know if you heard it or not. There were some people in the crowd that had some salty language. I didn't catch that the first time I played it, but when you mentioned Josh Shapiro, apparently some people in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania have an adverse reaction, and it comes out, with some profanity. And Tucker Carlson's 100% right. Josh Shapiro and Vladimir Zelenskyy are signing artillery shells. This is something they did in World War II. This is something that they did it in the Gulf War. I mean, they did it in all these places. You would sign the bombs and you would put a message on them, and then you would drop them on whatever country you were at war with. But these are artillery shells that are going to Ukraine, that are going to be dropped in Russia, which will kill civilians. He's right. And we're not at war with Russia. The United States is not actively at war with Russia. And this image, I mean, think about this. Think about Vladimir Putin. The next time that Vladimir Putin gets hit, the next time that Ukraine fires artillery shells at Russians or into Russia, the next time they drop one of these bombs that Josh Shapiro has signed, that Vladimir Zelenskyy has signed into Russia, and they kill Russian soldiers or civilians or both? You don't think Vladimir Putin has seen this video? You don't think Vladimir Putin has the internet? You don't think Vladimir Putin has been given this? And he's saying, oh, Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, Democrat. He's signing weapons. He's dropping them on Russia. He's killing Russians, and he's proud of it. Look at him smiling with Vladimir Zelenskyy. You don't think he sees this? I mean, he just endorsed Kamala Harris. What's he going to think when he sees that a governor from Kamala Harris's own party in a swing state is signing bombs that are going to kill Russians? He's gonna renege on that endorsement real quick. And where's Kamala Harris going to be without Vladimir Putin's endorsement for president of the United States? Tucker's right. It is kind of nauseating. It is kind of sickening. It's just plain wrong, and it's dangerous. But it doesn't matter, because Kamala Harris believes that this is how you win elections. She believes that you win elections by not campaigning, by not answering any questions, by blaming Donald Trump for everything, and the last thing that you do is you go out and you try to make sure that your enemies are on your side, and you try to make them into these heroes that we know they are not. And Vladimir Zelenskyy is the worst one. Listen, I did want to mention something else very quickly, because we like I said, this show is growing by leaps and bounds, and we have not just Chuck Norris who's come on board, but there is another fantastic product that we've been able to support. And it's a product that they're sending me samples of. I'm very excited about it. But if you suffer from daily pain, then please listen to this message very carefully, because this is cool. Let me pull up. I have a little thing I want to show you here real quick. There's an image of it. Here it is. Listen to this. This is something that everybody has to realize is going to happen. We're all going to age, and when you age, aches and pains become normal. And there are effective ways to relieve pain without side effects and addiction. We've all seen the opioid crisis. We've all seen how people can be affected personally by the opioid crisis. And that's where a pioneering medical scientist comes in, a guy by the name of Clint Winters. I don't know if you know Clint Winters, but he is a world-renowned health expert featured in the national media. And he has come up with a natural pain reliever called canalidine. I believe I said that right. I got to work on my pronunciation. Canalidine. If you've heard of canalidine, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. But canalidine is something that helps with all of your aches and pains. And again, because Clint knows more about it than I do, he has a fantastic video that he's created, and he shows how canalidine is the only compound on earth that optimizes your body's natural painkillers. When taken daily, it's gonna relieve you and bring you back to the prime of your life. It's really fantastic, and I'm so excited to get it. I'm so excited to try it. But canalidine is absolutely the future of pain relief. If you don't like pain relievers like I do, if you don't want to take pills or rubs or those smelly things that you put on the bend this or bend that, then canalidine is something that you should really investigate. And the easiest way to investigate it is to go to trycono.com/MarkK, MarkKaye, trycono.com/MarkK, MarkKaye. And you'll see Clint Winters there. He's got a video, and he's going to explain all of it to you and why it's such a great way to combat your pain and why it is the future of pain relief. Trycono/MarkK, Kaye. And like I said, we're very excited for everybody who's coming on board as part of the show. So please investigate and watch their videos, because they have some really great information for you. Before we get out of here, there's a story that everyone's been asking me about. There's a story everyone wants me to talk about, and it is the story of the FCC and George Soros. And I would be remiss if I didn't bring this story up. You haven't heard, the Democrat majority FCC is helping George Soros fast track his takeover of a nationwide radio network. And a quote from one of the FCC employees is, "This is scary. Left-leaning billionaire George Soros is trying to recruit the Democrat-controlled FCC to help fast track his takeover of the nation's second biggest radio network." Soros, who's 93, by the way, spent $400 million on a company called Odyssey. The network reaches 165 million monthly listeners and includes a handful of conservatives such as Sean Hannity, Dana Lash, Mark Levin, Glenn Beck, and a name that we won't mention. But their influence is likely to be muted if the billionaire takes over and imposes his agenda, as has happened with other media acquisitions. Basically, here's what's going on. This company, Odyssey, filed for bankruptcy. And in an effort to reorganize and get their, assets back together, they were looking for investors. And George Soros, the Austrian billionaire, who many believe is also a state sponsor of terrorist activity and who has purchased large portions of the United States of America, has infiltrated our elections and is a staunch socialist and supporter of the Democrats and the Democrat Party, has funded rioting efforts and Antifa efforts across the country. This guy is now buying up radio stations. And everybody knows how valuable radio stations are. Everybody knows how much information people get from the radio every single day. I was on the radio for years. What Rush Limbaugh built in this talk radio network and this talk radio format was untouchable forever. And the Democrats tried to shut it down, and Congress tried to shut it down. You may remember that Nancy Pelosi and what's his name, the guy who was the Senate majority leader who passed away, they issued a letter on the floor of the Senate condemning Rush Limbaugh in an effort to try to get people to run away from talk radio. They tried to boycott his advertisers whenever he said something they didn't like, which was almost daily. But Rush Limbaugh was able to build this network of talk radio stations and create an amazing new genre. Well, now that's all been washed away by the FCC. The FCC voted 3-2, because there's 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans, to fast track the sale of these 200 plus radio stations to George Soros. Listen to this.
You've indicated there's a transaction where a Soros-backed group would take ownership of over 200 radio stations across 40 different markets, after the FCC originally indicating that transaction could be reviewed and approved at the bureau level without a commission vote. It's now become clear that is a decision before the full commission, and it's one that I would assume now or in the near future the commission would approve. I think what's interesting about it is that the FCC here is not following its normal process for reviewing a transaction. We have established over a number of years one way in which you can get approval from the FCC when you have in excess of 25% foreign ownership, which this transaction does. And it seems to me that the FCC is poised to create, for the first time, an entirely new shortcut.
So the FCC has created, the Democrat-controlled FCC, the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Democrat-controlled FCC has created a brand new shortcut, a brand new rule that they've designed so that they can fast track something that shouldn't happen. 25% foreign ownership in federally regulated radio stations has never been allowed. And the petition was filed, a petition which should take at least a year to examine, at least a year to argue, at least a year to investigate and see, is this really something that is best for the United States of America and its citizens? Is this something that the Federal Communications Commission should really be allowing to happen? And instead of taking a year, they voted to just create a new rule and fast track it, which means that this sale is going to go through and George Soros is going to own 200 radio stations or more that reach over 180 million Americans every single day. Many of them talk radio stations that once were conservative, but no longer will be. This is the plan that the Democrats have. If Kamala Harris should somehow win the election, George Soros is going to control all of the information. And if Kamala Harris doesn't win the election and Donald Trump comes back to power, then George Soros is going to control all of the information. And the only messages you're going to hear on the radio are going to be the messages that George Soros and the socialist left-wing Democrats want you to hear. Which is why those of you watching on Rumble, you found a good place. Those of you watching on X, you've come to the right spot. Those of you watching us on YouTube every single day, we're going to hopefully hang in there as well. But listen to our podcast. Their independent media is media these days. Every other media company that you see now has been compromised. They're owned by a potential group that may politically have different views than you. They're owned by a group or a foreign outlet or a foreign owner that is looking toward the destruction of the United States as you know it. All of these things that you've relied on your whole life are compromised by left-wing agendas. Just look at David Muir and ABC News. Look at what happened during the debate. And now look at what the FCC is doing to the radio industry, which we all loved for so long. Don't worry, though, because as long as I have breath in my lungs, as long as I have words to spill and spew, I will find a way to get them to you. As long as I have a microphone and an internet connection and some lights, and it doesn't matter where I am. If I'm at home in Jacksonville, Florida, if I'm in Washington, D.C., doesn't matter. I will make sure that you get the information you need. I'll make sure you get the entertainment you need. I'll make sure you get all of the inspiration and the enlightenment that you need. I'm going to make sure that we continue to grow and spread this message far and wide. I'm going to make sure that we are all equipped to work together, to fight, and do everything we need to do to save the Republic.